Hey, what's up guys, Arva here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 6 today for the Spanish Grand Prix in Season 1. If you guys did miss the previous one at the Dutch GP, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. That was a rather big crash down to reality, I guess, that we still got a long way to go, really, from being consistent point scorers in F1, I guess, because that was a very tough one for us, but I do think we can bounce back a lot better here, and we could actually score points at the Spanish Grand Prix. Historically, it's been a very strong track for me in the previous few F1 games. Before we get to that, though, we've got usual admin to do, but not a lot of time, actually, between the Dutch and the Spanish Grand Prix with the calendar there. I think it's only a week on the calendar, so only 2 days to settle there. So we're going to go for the sponsor event that we can do to get 200 team acclaim. We will have to spend a bit of money for that event, but it's not really that much, and it's worthwhile to boost the acclaim even more because, again, we're still chasing after maybe even more sponsors. I don't know what the exact level of the next sponsor objective might be. I think it might be level 10, kind of would make sense perhaps, because there's only 4 additional slots on the sponsors available, but it's always good to keep on boosting that acclaim, and compared to the other ones, there's just not too many. I feel like that's the more useful one out of all 4, basically. And on top of that, more admin to do is we ended last episode with more than $2 million in our budget, so we can go ahead and purchase another upgrade on a facility. We're going to go for aerodynamics since we've got a load of upgrades already on the powertrain side of things. Obviously, that was kind of default there from the very start of the series since we complemented and kind of shifted focus to the engine side as kind of like a base level of our car. But we made one upgrade on the chassis side, which was the build time of the chassis HQ facility. We're now going to do that exact same thing for the aerodynamics. So we're going to increase or decrease rather the build time by 10%. I think that is that upgrade. But basically just invest in the aero side of things by one little divot around the circle, essentially. There's 12 little divots around the whole circle. We'll get 1 out of 12, and so, you know, it's still a long way to go to maximize everything, but it's a nice step forward to try and reduce that. I think once we've got the chassis and the aero upgrade we've got now, I think we'll be focusing a lot on aero mainly, because, you know, once we get past this bit of the tree where we've actually got a failure on the car, so this bit has failed, so the front downforce, we were hoping to get this minor upgrade in time for the Spanish Grand Prix. We're going to have to repurchase that, and so that will only come in between this episode and next episode. So that will be there for Monaco, but unfortunately, we cannot get that front downforce for the Spanish Grand Prix, which may hurt us a little bit, because obviously front end is quite important. You need quite a good balance at Spain. But yeah, I mean, once you get past that level of the R&D tree for aero, you can go quite into some nice stuff with just drag reduction, which helps the straight line anyway, and then also the downforce. So kind of get a double kind of prong attack on straight line speed and also aero. But to do that, we're going to have to upgrade the HQ as we go along, because you will reach a point where if we don't have an HQ that's upgraded enough, we can't actually physically even buy the upgrade, because the way the cloud of smoke goes away on the R&D tree on this year's game is that you have to upgrade the facilities to kind of see the development tree, you know, in the future of that part of the branch. But speaking about Spain then, and how we might be faring around here, technically on the paper on R&D, we are a little bit lower down now, because Haas have upgraded majorly. You can see ever since Bahrain, they've really rapidly improved compared to us. You know, even other teams, Alpha and AlphaTauri, Haas have just had this upward trajectory, which is fair play, but it means you can see just on the top edge of that graph, pretty much AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo are on top of each other. Then you've got Haas slotting in just under them, and then we're literally the same distance just under them. So we're pretty much all level pegging near enough. Like, there's only a pixel there on the graph to separate us. So we may not only be fighting both Alphas, the Tauri and Romeos, we might be fighting Haas a lot more now. And we did see that, to be fair, in qualifying at round Zandvoort. They did a lot better, but obviously the race pace then fell away. But they've improved even more here to Spain. But the added caveat is, I think our car will suit Spain a lot more. I think the Dutch GP, you had so many high-speed corners and just change of direction, I think. Whereas Spain, yeah, there's some high-speed corners, but I think the change of direction's a lot less, a lot more smooth, and it's a lot more like China and Bahrain, I think, in terms of how I feel like the car will go. Obviously, it remains to be seen, but historically as well, I've gone a lot better against AI around Spain. That was another thing that I think at Zandvoort, it was just a case of me getting to grips with the circuit, or not getting to grips with the circuit, more like, and then we had the damage at the very start of the Grand Prix. So I have higher hopes for Spain, but it's going to be still a big fight, I guess, between all the teams we're fighting, and also the tyre wear. You just never know. And speaking about tyres, I'm actually going to go in and go into this weekend with a softer selection of tyre compounds, because I have a good feeling that we could get through to Q2. Because every time we come to Spain, the kind of real kickstarter usually of the European portion of the season, even though now technically I guess the start of the European season is the Dutch GP, we exponentially start to improve, get more comfortable with the circuit, or to get more comfortable with the car and the physics of the new game. And I felt, even though we had a pretty disastrous showing at Zandvoort, I'm feeling more and more comfortable with the car as we go on. But I just think the car's going to suit the circuit a lot better. So we're hoping if we get into that second part, I can actually now compete in it, because we remember back at episode 2 at Bahrain, I did make it through into Q2, but we couldn't run because we didn't have any more tyres to go with, because I used 3 sets of softs to get into Q2. This time, if we use all 3 sets, we'll at least have 1 set for that second part of qualifying, and if we make it through on 2 sets, we'll have 2 sets to go in Q2. So let's see how it is. So here we are then in qualifying Q1, nice and sunny. Thankfully no rain has been anywhere near any of the sessions so far in this season, which is a great thing, because I really don't want to know what this car handles like in the wet. The better, the more we can stay away from that, the better, basically. But an okay first lap, but definitely a lot of time to still finding into the kind of rhythm of everything. You can see the front left tyre there was a little bit hot, and on the right hand side the gearbox is also a little bit worn, so that's something to look at. I might consider a gearbox penalty. Let's just see how this is, how the performance is, and also where we stand. And by the time we set our second flyer, we get up into P16 and we do get through. So a little bit anticlimactic actually, but yeah, just our second run and we get through. It was a much better lap time, but to be fair, something odd happened in Q1. You can see Daniel Ricciardo, no time set. Sebastian Vettel, no time set. Schumacher was way off me, but a lot of teammates were way off their respective teammates. Giovinazzi was so far off Raikkonen, and also the same thing for Kvyat versus Gasly, although Gasly made it through. But there was a lot of weird things happening in that Q1 session, so I don't really know what was going on there. But obviously, I can't really, put it down to a glitch or whatever. Sometimes that's just the game. It's not like in real life F1. Sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes people don't go out and set times in time, or something goes on. So I don't know what's gone on for Ricciardo or Vettel, but they both didn't set a time, and so that's jumped me into Q2, because otherwise I probably would have been P18. So we've been gifted a chance to qualify here, and so we've got to make the most of it. So our first flyer was okay. We're down in P14, but it's actually higher than we were in Q1 at least, so good stuff there. But this is now our second and last flyer, the last set of soft tyres I have to use before, either we get knocked out or make it into Q3 and get an extra free set in Q3. But we're going to stay on board for the entire lap here, because I felt like this was a really decent lap. It wasn't spectacular. There's no awe-inspiring corner where I gain a load of time. I just think it's a pretty decent lap where I try and rectify the issues and the understeer bits I had in the kind of previous 3 laps, going very wide there, trying to maximize the speed I carry through here, nailing the top of the right-hander really on the edge of the track in both senses, on the curb on the inside and then the exit curb as well, using the ERS at the best point I can, or the DRS rather, as the ERS obviously is auto-deployed the entire time, but opening DRS as soon as I can, right on the edge, flat out throttle, and through the last sector as well, the new sector in Spain, remember, they've redone this portion of the circuit for F1 2020, so the new camber and kind of undulation here in Sector 3, getting the rhythm correct and gaining about 6/10 here, a mountain of time really for us to gain so far this season in one qualifying lap. P10 across the line, and eventually it'll be P13, so we don't get through to Q3. I would be very shocked if we did at this early stage of our career in My Team career mode, but we do get P13, which is a really scintillating time for us. But to be fair, look how close it is in terms of qualifying. from myself down to Kvyat, only 3/10, but then there's actually quite a large gap from myself to Gasly, but then after him, it's all very close. So those guys are in a bit of a world of their own, it would seem. Gasly up to, I would say, even Grosjean. Yeah, Grosjean down to Gasly, that P8 to P12, so close, only 1/10 in it, but then there's a massive leap down to me. So I've got quite lucky that the guys behind me, Magnussen, Raikkonen, and Kvyat, they did not set better times, because I feel like, you know, looking at the Q1 pace of Raikkonen and such, they could have slotted in that kind of 3/4 gap that I've got between myself and Pierre Gasly. So P13, our best qualifying slot today. I'm pretty sure. I think that's our best grid slot today. And I am not going to take a grid penalty. I thought about it. I have to remember, I was thinking about taking a penalty because next race is Monaco. And I thought, no, I don't want to take a penalty at Monaco. But remember, due to the addition of Vietnam and Zandvoort in the calendar, Monaco is no longer the 6th race on the calendar. And obviously, you have to take a Gearbox 6 races to not get a penalty. But this is now the 6th race. Usually, Spain would be the 5th race. But now we've got very lucky that this is the 6th race, so we can just go on about our business, not take the penalty. I think we could be a lot better around here, even if we do have some issues in the race, compared to if we had issues at Monaco. And also, I don't need to worry about taking a penalty at Monaco, because I'm going to get a new gearbox there anyway. So that's all fine. We may hit some sort of gear issue in the race, but I think it's a lot more manageable at Catalonia. So let's go to the grids. Our highest slot so far, you know, only 3 positions away from points. Could we bounce back in some style here from what was such a horrendous one at Zandvoort? Let's find out.
The Spanish Grand Prix has been a permanent fixture on the Formula One calendar for over 30 years now, and for good reason. Do you remember Michael Schumacher's absolute dominance here in that rain-soaked Grand Prix in 1996? That day he took his first ever victory for Ferrari, and we've had many more iconic moments since. It's a sellout crowd of 140,000 here today as we await lights out for the 730-metre sprint down to turn 1 of this 2.9-mile racetrack. Overtaking is challenging through these 16 corners, but there's still a lot of high-speed excitement to be found, including the flat-out turn 3 and the terrifying blind right of turn 9. Anthony Davidson also joins me in the commentary box today. Let me ask you about Racing Point. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Verstappen, Leclerc, Alexander Albon, and Sainz, Norris, Perez, Ocon, and Roman Grosjean, Stroll, Gasly, a Mercedes, and Magnussen, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Nicholas Latifi, and Mick Schumacher. Russell, Ricciardo, Vettel, and Daniel Kvyat completes the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
All right, so having a look then at the race strategies we can do here at Spain, we've got either a 1-stop or a 2-stop. Now, because I chose a softer set of tyres to bring, I cannot do a 2-stop with 2 sets of medium tyres. So that 2-stop strategy is a lot less, well, you know, appetizing, because we have to go on a set of hard tyres anyway. So, and also looking at the whole grid, it seems like everyone, apart from all the people that have to start on softs due to qualifying in Q3, everyone else around me is going to start on medium tyres and do this 1-stop. So I think it'd be stupidest for us to not do it, because even like when we did a 2-stop at Bahrain and that worked out for us, we had a lot of people doing that same strategy with us, whereas this time I think we'd be going against the grain very much so if we're doing a 2-stop, and it looks like it's going to be a lot like China, where maybe track position against some people that are doing 2-stops will be useful. Also, the tyre wear is just generally quite hard around Spain anyway, so maybe the hard tyres for once might be a nice race tyre. Maybe this will be the first race I actually enjoy being on a set of white wall tyres. We'll have to find out. But from P13, I got to say, we've got to make the most of it. I think this is a really great chance. Only 3 places off the top 10 already. We've surely got to aim for points, I would hope, but let's obviously not get too far ahead of ourselves. We don't know the race pace yet, but I've got a good feeling about this. So with that then, let's get into this and go to 5 red lights to this Spanish Grand Prix, round number 6 of Season 1 era. My team career mode, 5 red lights are out, and we're underway. It's a slow one for Gasly, good one for us. Grosjean up headed, oh, he's been caught up by Leclerc. Leclerc's going real slow for some reason. The Ferrari's got an issue. We dipped a tyre onto the grass to avoid some contact with the Racing Point, and Grosjean ahead, and Leclerc snapped round, and Leclerc sideways. Oh my lord, oh my god, what a race start that has been. So much chaos, and the virtual safety car is out. What a race start that was, so frantic, and in the end we're only 1 position higher than where we started. Raikkonen's had a good start there, he's up into P11, Grosjean as well, P10. Both those guys have jumped me off the start because they didn't get held up, because I got completely nearly T-boned by Leclerc. But having a look back at that start, Gasly got a real slow start, as did Grosjean, but up ahead of us Leclerc bogs down. I think he kind of got hit anti-stall or something, because Norris dives out the way, as does Sergio Perez, but because Perez had to dodge so much out the way, his teammate Stroll was able to get him, and then into turn 1, obviously just very unfortunate racing incident for Leclerc, where he's pinched on the curb, which off-settles him, and then he just spews into Stroll and gets spun round by Stroll, and then also Perez continues to push that Ferrari round, and then obviously he was lucky, well I was lucky that I started to brake immediately and I didn't slam into his rear end there, but it all got hot and bothered there. But really just a racing incident for Leclerc, although very clear it was caused by something that went on at his race start, either anti-stall or his car's got a mechanical issue off for the 5 red lights, which would be very unfortunate for the Ferrari team. But we're now gone back to green. You saw I got kind of caught napping a little bit because the virtual safety car kind of just ended out of nowhere through mid-corner in that last sector for me. So Raikkonen gets an okay restart compared to us, although to be fair, we get a jump on Gasly and catch him napping as well on the opening lap. And now he's moved through onto lap number 3. DRS now activated in this race, using a lot of ERS off that last corner to try and close up to Raikkonen. But at this stage, I'm pushing quite hard, and I'm not really gaining that much on Raikkonen and Grosjean ahead. So they've got some good pace in this Grand Prix now, which is unfortunate for me, because obviously they started behind me, so you know they only got locked into that position due to the spin with Leclerc. I happened to be obviously the man right behind him as he went sideways, and I think a lot of that's now due to the front left tyre is really cooking. It's the only tyre there you can see on the bottom right heads up display that's yellow or orange on the internal carcass temperature. Now, generally on this game, if you don't know already, guys, on F1 2020, you should definitely lower your tyre pressures from the default at every single circuit, because tyre temps are so much more important on this year's game than they ever have been in terms of controlling the working range. But even though I lowered them, I guess I should have lowered the front left even more in hindsight, as on the medium tyres at least, they're really starting to heat up. As we go on through the Grand Prix, we do gain some free positions, as these people pitting right now are all of those that started on a set of soft tyres that made it through into Q3, so some free positions there. But like I said, maybe this is a sign that finally this might be the one Grand Prix where the hard tyres, the white wall tyres, might actually be quite nice to be on, because I reckon those won't heat up as much as these mediums are, and it's really hampering me because you can just see the general lack of response on the front end there through the last sector, and also how much Raikkonen's waltzed away from us. He's now, you know, nearly 3 seconds clear of us in a matter of, you know, what's that, 5 laps really. So he's gained a lot of time on us, and as we go on through this stint onto lap number 9, we're going to get a very crucial radio message, which is going to confirm our fears maybe of what we talked about in qualifying.
Lost one of the gears, the transmission is significantly damaged, we're down a gear.
So yeah, we've got a gearbox issue, we've lost 4th gear. It is a temporary thing, but I don't know how long that temporary measure will be for, because, you know, on the previous F1 games, it could be a couple of laps. So let's just hope that by the time before we even make our first pit stop, let's hope that 4th gear comes back to us. It's probably not the worst gear to lose around Spain, because I do use 3rd and 2nd in the 3rd sector a lot more, and using 5th and 6th in the 1st and 2nd sector. So 4th gear probably could have been the best gear to lose, really.
Okay, bad news on the gearbox. The team are trying everything they can think of, but they're not optimistic. Just keep at it, do your best, that's all we can ask.
But yeah, like Jeff has just said, literally all they can do right now is just say keep driving and maybe it'll get better. And it will get better eventually, I'm sure, but it's just about when that will actually happen. And speaking about it coming back on lap 11, fourth gear is back with us, so that's a good thing at least. So it only lasted, you know, what, 3-4 laps maximum with that issue. So fourth gear is back, but we're kind of still losing pace because what hasn't changed is the fact that our front left tyre is pretty much on fire. Obviously, visually, you can't tell anything's wrong apart from the understeer, but, you know, if we look at the heads-up display, the carcass temperature is just getting so hot every single time in sectors 1 and 2, and then by the time we get to sector 3, where it's not as strenuous, it's hot enough where it's causing us this issue. And now you can see Gasly attacking us. We have to go defensive for the first time really in this Grand Prix. You know, we haven't really done that much defending or attacking in this Grand Prix, just been pretty much driving to our maximum, trying to keep this ahead of cars. But right now, Gasly is starting to attack us. Vettel having a little look on Gasly, and by the time we get to Sector 3 of lap 13, Vettel is sailing around the outside. Remember, Vettel qualified in last place with no time set in qualifying, as well as Ricciardo. So those two trying to make their way through this Grand Prix. So Vettel making his way past Gasly now, and now he's behind me in P8 and closing up quite rapidly with DRS. We've got some, we were using some rich mix. We're now down to standard mixture, and I'm not going to fight Vettel too much. There's no point. I'm not fighting him. I would expect him to overtake me and go on to, you know, finish ahead of me anyway. So just going to stay in standard ERS. He's probably using his fuel and overtake button, so he sails past us down the inside. We get hit with a big wash of dirty air, though, and understeer, though, unfortunately. So that does slow us down a little bit more than I wanted to. But eventually, lap 14, at the end of that lap, we'll come in for our one and only pit stop onto a set of white wall hard tyres. And as I said, I really hope that this is now the race where I finally enjoy the hard tyres, because I think the tyres was so harsh, the track was so harsh on the tyres and the internal carcass temperature on that front left, that I think the hard tyres honestly will actually be okay, because that's how hard this circuit's punishing them, that the hard tyres will actually heat up quite quickly and actually rubber in quickly compared to how they did at China or Bahrain or Australia, for example. So we come out in P18 on that lap. One lap later, this is Mick Schumacher, our teammate, coming out the pit lane just side by side with Gasly. He'll fall behind him, but crucially, Schumacher jumps that entire train of the Williams car, the Renault and Alfa Romeo. Schumacher was initially behind this Williams car on the first stint, so now it's going to be myself, Gasly, and Schumacher. So Schumacher's also not doing too bad in this race, actually. So as we go a little bit wide there, both our cars seeming okay, you know. Obviously, we're losing a bit of pace to Raikkonen, but overall, I don't think we're doing too badly as a unit. Lap number 17 now. We're up into P12 as one other person makes their pit stop. So we're only 2 places off points paying positions, and we're keeping Gasly at bay, and Schumacher is keeping Gasly honest, staying within that 1 second. We defend against the Frenchman into turn 1. Nothing too crazy, just a simple move to the inside. He can't get it around the outside, and so he stay put there. But yeah, the fact that we're keeping Gasly at bay, and in tandem Schumacher is keeping Gasly quite honest in the same sort of gaps, kind of tells me this is where the car is, which is kind of good and bad, because we're not obviously in the points. And just up the road, you can see there that Sergio Perez going through the corners ahead of us. Now he's on a 2-stop, as well as the 2 McLarens of Norris and Sainz, and they've all made their second stop and just come out ahead of us. So you can see there, that's the kind of gap we're trying to bridge, where we want to kind of eventually be fast enough where we could maybe try and jump these guys and kind of get track position by doing a clever 1-stop versus a 2-stop. So don't quite have the pace today to challenge those guys. I didn't ever think so, though, because obviously it's a McLaren and Racing Point after the patch from episode 2. I have never expected to fight McLaren and Racing Point. Who we are fighting, though, are Alfa Romeo, Alfa Tauri and Haas, and both myself and Schumacher are ahead of a load of those guys, so doing some good work. Apart from Raikkonen, though. Raikkonen, we obviously saw he overtook us at the start and went away and waltzed away. He's actually doing a madness right now. I think he's up in like P7 or 6 as it stands. Running very high, so I don't know what on earth Kimi has had for breakfast today, but he's on a different planet. But we're just going to continue about our business, try and bring this home. It's been a very solid but quiet Grand Prix for us, but we've just gone about our business, got our head down and just, you know, stayed ahead of Gasly. But he's kept me honest the entire time. Like this entire second stint, I've just not been able to break away. I've tried my best to break the 1 second, but he just keeps on reeling me back in. But at the same time, he's not overtaking me. But now, lap 27, you just saw there a flash of the flags on the bottom left, and Valtteri Bottas is out of this Spanish Grand Prix. He was in P2 chasing after Lewis Hamilton for the race lead. It was a 1-2 for Mercedes. Now no more. Bottas out of this Grand Prix. We're in P11 right now as it stands, but remember, we're pretty much 1 lap down because that's how quick they were. So by the time we come back around on that same part of the circuit, lap 28 into this first sector, you're about to see on the top left, we'll overtake Bottas because he retired right about here. And so there we are. So in the end, this quite, quiet and mundane Spanish Grand Prix has paid out big dividends of us being up in the points-paying positions. It's only 1 point, but it's still a point, so that's very good news for us. And now, lap 30, 3 laps to go in this Grand Prix. Hamilton, the race leader, is coming to lap us. We've got blue flags. I didn't want to let him through at this part of the circuit because I thought I could probably go through 3 corners because that's the rule in real life Formula 1. I think you can go through 3 corners and then you have to let them through, like absolutely then. So we wait until this straight, lift off here, under braking, hoping he kind of closes up a little bit quicker because I just don't want to lose any time to Gasly because I do not want to fight Gasly for P10. Like, I want just to be in P10, but now that may have just changed. That may have just changed. It might not even be for P10. It might be for P9 because you just saw there, Sebastian Vettel out of this Grand Prix. There you go, top left. Perez has overtaken him ahead of the circuit. Vettel had the fast lap of the Grand Prix as well. That's such a shame for him. He qualified in last place, no time set. Had the fast lap of the Grand Prix, made it up into what looked like P7 or 6 at least, and now he's retired. There he is, parked up. So we're up into P9. Absolutely blistering stuff. We'll finish this Grand Prix 1 lap early on lap 32 because we've been lapped by the race leader. But my oh my, this is a really good reward because this was a long, like I said, not a very action-packed Grand Prix. Like, I literally just got my head down. I just drove the wheels off the car, trying to keep it ahead of Gasly, which I did the entire time, but he was constantly just there, 1 second behind me, as was Schumacher 1 second behind Gasly. So it was kind of a kind of race of attrition, really. But we've been rewarded now by just having consistency, no reliability issues, and with Bottas out, Vettel out, up into P9, that's going to be 2 points for us today. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Really great Spanish Grand Prix in the end there. And it flew by for me in the cockpit, to be honest, because it just kind of, went by in a flash. But Lewis Hamilton's going to win that Grand Prix. It's a shame that Schumacher is just going to miss out on points there with P11. It would have been nice to have a double points finish, and he kind of deserved it to be, right there consistently with myself and Gasly. But it's going to be P9 for us. Happy days, back in the points. But driver of the day, no surprise, Kimi Raikkonen. You're about to see in the race results, he was in a different universe to all of us.
They've done it then. A spectacular victory here in Spain and a massive confidence boost going into the next race. What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
Mercedes are on top form once again after an excellent race weekend. It's great to see them up on that podium once again.
So Hamilton won the Spanish Grand Prix, Verstappen there on the podium with Albon. So the 2 Red Bulls have really made strides since episode 2. So for the sake of the championship, for the AI, it's going to really heat up with the 2 Red Bulls and Mercedes, with Ferrari faltering as of late.
Great work out there today. Let's have your thoughts. You really cut your way through the field today. What was your strategy?
We can go about 3 different ways of complementing our different departments. Going to go for this chassis side and talk about the nimbleness, because I genuinely think that was a good reason why we did well today, just how the car handled.
You're beating all expectations. Would you say we all underestimated you?
Once again, not going to miss the opportunity to compliment the team, try and get the acclaim as high as we can with the answer we give here.
Do you have any comments about the collisions?
And as standard for these questions, just going to go with no comment because I feel like any answer is going to be negative for us, for our claim and everything like that. So just no comment there.
Great. Well, that's everything.
But that is the full race results then. You can see Kimi Raikkonen, P6. I think he was 7th before Vettel retired, so he got lucky as well with Vettel retiring there. But Raikkonen, I just don't know where he had that pace. Like, he qualified P16, you can see there, well behind us, and he's up in P6, flying high. Absolutely insane stuff. But it just shows sometimes things just click for you in the races, and so they've clicked today for Raikkonen. But for us, P9 to P11, I think very good stuff. Like I said, unfortunate for Schumacher not to get points. I was kind of gutted for him, for the team's sake. But pace-wise, compared to most people we were looking to battle, we actually had some decent pace. You know, everyone else was running, you know, high 119s, 120s. We were running a 119.7 as our best lap time. So I think we had some pretty decent pace. Obviously, he got helped out a little bit by some cars being held up by others and some battling and whatnot. But generally speaking, that's where the car was, because Schumacher was right there with us. But after all of that, even a second time of scoring points, we go lower down the championship because Kimi's P6 is a load of points, and he's now Alfa Romeo are level on points with us with 8 points apiece, but they get the position because Kimi's race finish is higher, the highest position out of the ones I've got. So even though we've gone forwards, we've gone backwards in a way. Like, it's really, yeah, this is going to be quite frustrating battling Alfa Romeo and Alfa Tauri, because it's going to be such fine margins, and it's going to be just like in real life where it goes right down to the wire. Like, honestly, it could go down to the last 2-3 races of where we finish in the Constructors' Championship, just because we might very much end up on level points with someone, or be very close to other people. So that's going to be a long-term sort of fight to look at. But very good news at the end of this episode. We get both sponsor objectives of DSB Optics and Atlantic. So we finished in the points and also did enough racing laps to get that bonus. So good amount. We did get 50k of damages for some reason, which I don't remember hitting anyone. I didn't have damage, unless they're talking about the damage I had with like Leclerc by, I don't know, like grazing him, or I don't know, tapping like Grosjean at the start when I was getting out of his way. I don't know. So that was a little bit frustrating to see, but still 1.42 million at the end of this episode. Decent tally, so that should mean by the end of Monaco we'll have another chance to upgrade our facilities. So all in all, very good Spanish Grand Prix. It was a long burner. We had to wait right to the last 5 laps to get the points, but in the end, decent job, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So if you did, be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been Arava. Hope you guys enjoy us today. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.